At the end of this video, you should be able to use a periodic table to name elements given their symbols, use a periodic table to write the symbols of elements given their names, and describe the arrangement of the periodic table. Chapter 1, Section 3, Elements. As you have read, elements are pure substances that cannot be decomposed by chemical changes. The elements serve as building blocks of matter. Each element has a set of characteristic properties. The elements are organized into groups based on similar chemical properties. This organization of elements is the periodic table, which is shown in Figure 1-2 on page 21 of your text or on the screen now. Introduction to the periodic table. Each small square of the periodic table shows the name of one element and the letter symbol for the element. For example, the first square at the upper left represents element 1, hydrogen, which has the atomic symbol capital H. As you look through the table, you will see familiar elements, including iron, sodium, neon, silver, copper, aluminum, sulfur, and lead. You can often relate the symbols to the English names for the elements, though some symbols are derived from the element's older name, which is often in Latin. Wolfram, however, comes from the German name for tungsten. Table 1-2 on page 20 of your text, or on the screen now, lists some of those elements. Familiarize yourself with these elements and their symbols because they are commonly used throughout this course.
All elements are organized by their properties on the periodic table. All elements are denoted by 1, 2, or 3-letter symbols. The first letter of the symbol is always capitalized.
The vertical columns of the periodic table are called groups or families. Notice that they are numbered from 1 to 18 from left to right. Each group contains elements with similar chemical properties. For example, the elements in group 2 are beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and radium. All of these elements are reactive metals with similar abilities to bond to other kinds of atoms. The two major categories of elements are metals and nonmetals. Metalloids have properties intermediate between those of metals and nonmetals. The horizontal rows of elements in the periodic table are called periods. Physical and chemical properties change somewhat regularly across a period. Elements that are close to each other in the same period tend to be more similar than elements that are further apart. For example, in period 2, the elements lithium and beryllium in groups 1 and 2 respectively are somewhat similar in properties. However, their properties are very different from the properties of fluorine, the period 2 element in group 17. The two sets of elements placed below the periodic table make up what are called the lanthanide series and the actinide series. These metallic elements fit into the table just after elements 57 and 89. They are placed below the table to keep the table from being too wide. There is a section at the back of your textbook called the Elements Handbook, found on pages 726 through 783, which covers some of the representative elements in greater detail. You will use information from the handbook to complete the questions throughout this course. At this point, you should be able to use a periodic table to name elements given their symbols, use a periodic table to write the symbols of elements given their names, and describe the arrangement of the periodic table.